Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Voice in the Hollow, a filmmaking journey in Unreal Engine 5. I'm your host, Miguel Ortega, and this is my co host, Tran.
Hey everyone.
How's everybody doing? We're almost at the end here. Uh, we're doing finishing touches on everything, and we're exhausted. Um, Tran is back this week.
Yes, I feel very much under the weather.
Yeah, but yeah. So this week, like I said, we're just trying to wrap everything up, fine tune everything. We have the edit all in place now. And now we're just going in and making sure the story makes sense, that everything makes sense, getting the sound to be final. We still have to do one more session of recording some of the dialogue to fix some things up, which we're doing tomorrow. And yeah, for those of you that don't know what we're doing, we're basically making, hey, Elvira, we're making a weekly vlog showing the making of a short film, all in Unreal Engine 5. Let me just play the really quick trailer that we made a few weeks ago, just so you guys see what we're doing.
Nina nguvu, mimi ni chui. Nina nguvu, mimi ni chui. Nina nguvu, mimi ni chui.
So yeah, so that was our little quick teaser. Hey, Netbug, how's it going? We're probably gonna make another one of those soon, as we get closer to the finish line. So yeah, so Tran is gonna be showing some stuff today. Her process on lighting. Some of the shots that she's been working on are probably some of my favorite shots, of course, because Tran did them, so they always look awesome, and they just look really cinematic and beautiful. I think a lot of it has to do with just getting more comfortable with Unreal as a whole, and really treating it less like V-Ray and more like
Unreal.
Yeah, yeah, that's really
that's
big.
what it
The big
is. Like
thing.
how do you deal with the tool? It doesn't in terms of lighting, it's nothing like before. It's still amazing though because it's really fast, right? So the amount of time when you're lighting in like any, if you were an Arnold or Viewer, even Redshift, just to place a light and just to see what that even does, it takes like several minutes at least. So here we get to work real time, and that's really awesome. But like the logic of lighting is like very different. So you know, and I talk about that all the time. So right now I have a shot open that I've worked on. I'll play it. Which is kind of spoilery, but can't help but have to show some of the stuff. So I like how the shot turned out, and it looks cool. At least I think it looks cool. There's a couple of things that are happening in here. One, Koa, she has a texture change here where she has some tears in her eyes. Her eyes are more wet, and she's got some stains in her face. But this shot took a very long time to do. It was more complicated in terms of dealing with the cloth simulation, right? So we had wind coming here in the first couple of frames, and then this vine comes in and it grabs her, and then it also grabs Ala and then pulls them into the hole. So that was really tricky for multiple reasons. The cloth simulation was very difficult. So I had to have wind on because that's what we have in all our scenes. So I can't just turn off the wind. But the wind did cause trouble once the vines grabbed it. So I have the wind playing. Then I turn off the wind as it wraps around. And then the vines, when it was wrapping around, was just smashing through the cloth. So it took like many iterations and a lot of shot modeling to get to work. So initially, basically all our shots are being shot modeled, meaning like this, there's all kinds of deformation issues And then there's a lot of shot modeling on the vines just to handle the contact points. So the animators we have are really great, but sometimes when you're simming, you realize like, oh, the vine is clipping through the body a little bit. And even if you don't see it in this shot, it still has to wrap around the body correctly. Because if the vines wrap around the body or clashing through where there's clothes, the cloth will just explode. Like it would just like pop out and act really bad. So this one took quite a few tries. And then with Ala here, it's also tricky because she has contact with the ground. So the more contact I have, the trickier it is to do the cloth sim. But she was still a little bit easier because she doesn't have as much interaction up here. So this one took me, it's one of the longer ones, not one of the worst ones. But it took me a while. As far as lighting, so I'm also lighting it. I'll show you what it looks like when it's outside the scene. So I think one of the things that took me a while to get used to was just how to deal with the lighting. And then just dealing with how ugly things look outside. So as soon as I leave the shot, like everything looks fine here, right? I feel it looks pretty cinematic. And then as soon as I pop out, you can see how everything really falls apart. So that's part of the challenge for me when I'm lighting these scenes. Like if you look here, like it looks really nasty and really ugly. So it's super easy. There's not a lot of wiggle room. It's super easy for it to look really bad. And that's what makes it really tricky versus like, say, if I light in, before, like in V-Ray, it usually doesn't look really bad like this where it's bad, right? So, I mean, you can get things to look good, but there is like a gamey type of look here where there's all this like normal map kind of look, all these harsh shadows. But I've gotten used to that, so it's just taking some time. If I come back here and kind of also analyze the light, what I'm doing a lot is faking the shadows, right? So I have these spheres in the sequence right here, only for this shot, and they just help to cast some shadows to make it more dramatic. And if you're really looking here, when we're looking through the shot, it feels like she's in total shadow, right? And she kind of is, but she kind of is also not really. When you're outside the scene, you can see it's not truly like that. The sphere, all it's really doing, it's not really affecting her so much, but it's affecting the terrain here. So it gives us the feeling that we're totally in shadow.
I actually think that works really well. It feels like you're inside the hole more.
Yes. And then the other thing I'm doing here is I have like these rim lights. Let's turn them off. So let's look into the camera. So I have the sun giving me this lighting, and she is kind of backlit, but she's not really fully in shadow. So I have the sphere, if I turn those on, that cast a shadow. And then what I'm done here is add these 2 rim lights. So let's come back out here just to take a look at this. So I have 2 because one was not quite enough, or it's a little bit too strong. And it's just to keep the light on her consistently as she's moving through. So, this one here will light her when she's in the early frames. And then when she gets over here, this one will also rim light it. And this other light here is just giving it a little bit of a fill. So let's pop back in here. And let me turn these off. So I have this extra fill because she looks kind of muddy and her forms are getting lost, right? Subtle. Now, whenever I use a light as a fake fill light, so this is like, in my weird language, it's not rational or anything, but I tend to create like fills using spotlights Initially in the beginning, I would use a rectangle light, but rectangle lights are like, I don't really like them so much because I find that they're harder to control and they feel a little bit different. So if you check this one out here, kind of radiates all around, even though it's really just, facing whatever direction. I mean, you could change the barn angle, and so it starts to act more like a spotlight, right? But it just didn't really work out for me. Let me see if I could undo that. If I hit delete, it's going to take like 20 minutes to delete. What I like about the spotlights is I have a cone. So that will, anything outside of this kind of cone radius will not be lit. And I'm using the spotlights to cheat a lot. So all my lightings are just cheats, right? So it's actually important for me to contain it. And the way I get to feel more like a rectangle light, so rectangle lights are like soft boxes where they give you nice soft shadows. And the spotlight by default, if you make one, so say if I make one like this, the shadows it tends to cast are really sharp. Let's see if I can cast. I don't think I can cast shadow in this scene. But like say if I have something here and I have a rock. Okay. And then maybe I'll get a shadow if I increase that light. So initially I didn't really like spotlights because the shadows seem sharp. So you can kind of see this weird shadow shape here. What I'll do to make it feel more soft is I'll increase my source radius. So that actually will increase the softness of my shadow, make it less sharp, right? So if I'm here at 0, shadows are sharper. And if I go really extreme values, that make the shadows really, really soft. The second thing I'll do to kind of remove the spotlight look, because they tend to be really reflective, is I will change the specular scale.
Manuel, we don't bake anything.
Yeah, this is all, we don't bake any lighting. We're trying to treat it as close to how we work.
And Tetsuo is asking if you use like light linking much because it only has the 3 channels. I don't think we use that stuff often.
I don't
We
think
use it sometimes, but not a ton.
light linking doesn't really work well for, it doesn't work. Yeah, there's channels. So, I have a spotlight selected right here, spotlight 3. You can type in channels, right? And you could set models to specific channels. So everything by default is at channel 0. And if we look at the character here, she's also channel 0. Technically, if I turn off channel 0, any light that is using channel 0 should not affect the model. But it doesn't seem to really work that way. It still seems like it's affected by something. So it's not quite like as solid in terms of light linking the way that we're used to in Maya. So I've just avoided using that. But anyway, as we're looking at lights here, you can see I have a source radius to soften the shadows because I'm treating it like a fill, and you can see my specular scale is at 0.3. So if I bring this back to 1, and right here you can see the reflections are really brought up. You can actually see the feeling that a spotlight is hitting it. If I set it to 0, which basically kills reflections. So specular, at least to me, right, and I'm pretty sure it's basically your reflectivity, right? So if you have a spec map, it's how strong, how reflective your surface is. So right now at specular scale here, there's no spec contribution. And it feels flatter and it feels more like a fill, but I like to have a little bit of something. So I have it at 0.3. If I have it at 1, I'm feeling the spotlight too much. So most of all my fill lights have low spec and they have a strong source radius. Now the spotlights here, so the first one hitting it, what it's doing is it's giving me some subtle highlights on her shoulder. So as I turn it on and off, you can kind of see. It's also giving me like a little bit of speck hit here, which I like. I'm also going for a blue color. So our palettes are pretty simple. You can see, the smoke is really orange. And since that's orange, I'm going to counter that with blue light, right? It's also not very consistent. Sometimes the light hitting the character is actually yellow, and then sometimes it's blue. So it just depends whatever's going on. Again, it's not very logical in terms of like the logic of the approach. I think you can't really feel it because overall, as long as the colors between the scenes are consistent, like, okay, there's orange and blue and they're the same orange and the same blue, I think it works out fine. In this case, it's blue because my dust is orange, and I'm getting a little bit of speck hit. The other thing that I have though is volumetric, a little bit of volumetric changes. And let's see, let's turn this off here. It's actually filling the sky up here a little bit. It's giving it like a light blue cast. So that, to me, I like that because it gives me kind of a subtle gradient. It's less flat, right? And you instinctively feel like there's sky above. So, as she's moving, once she gets here, we kind of lose some of that. So here I added that back in, and it gives me that subtle soft glow around here. The other thing I do a lot in my lighting, let's look at my lights. So my light setup is pretty consistent. I have a directional light, I have exponential fog, and I have the HDRI. Now I have a total love-hate relationship with the HDRI. HDRI is pretty unstable in our scene. The lighting tends to break. I'll kind of show you a couple of renders.
Tends to, as in all the time.
Yeah, pretty much like 70% chance your shot's gonna break. And then I also have a post-process. Now, my HDRI is basically used like a fill light, and it gives me nice complexity in my shadows. So let's come back here. Let's shut off the things I added. So I just turn off the lights here. And I'll turn off my directional light, right? So right now, all I have on is, I have my post-process. Let's turn that off. Okay. And then let's turn off my fog. Totally not going to save the scene. This is how you break your lighting. When you turn off certain lights and then you turn them back on, your scene can be really unstable and the light could break, which drives me absolutely insane. Now, if you look at this here, all I have is my HDRI, and my HDRI intensity is at 2. And then I also have a skylight in it. Basically, it's a very soft type of lighting that is just not giving me hard shadows. As far as where the light source is, it's not really anywhere. We do have shadows on her just because, there's less light bouncing around because she's kind of hunched over. But the direction of the actual HDRI is not very important. If we look at the HDRI, it does have a sun. So I could use it as a directional light, but I never actually ever do that. I just use it to give me kind of nice, soft information. And there's less harshness. So I always constantly say the word harsh. Let's pop out of the camera. So what I mean by less harsh is like, now that I'm out here and I only have my HDRI, I don't have those nasty black shadows that I was showing you earlier, right? There are some weird stuff going on here. Those are just some weird decals, but it looks all right. Like the geometry doesn't look as disgusting anymore, right? So that's why I use the HDRI. You can use, Unreal's lighting, like their skylight system and everything. But I feel like the HDRI gives me something much softer and really nice and complex. the downside is that it breaks. Once I have something like that, and I have this kind of fill, I'll bring in my directional light. And directional light, you know, you have to be careful with, because that's where you're going to start getting your nasty hard shadows, right? So I just try to rotate it to try to hide all the ugly shadows. And then we have our fog that coming in. So here, my directional light, in terms of color palette, is warmer. So I have a temperature, it's at 3,600, which is really warm, right? And then my fog here has volumetric fog on, and it also has a blue color, right? So that's kind of balancing, giving me my palette. So that's how I'm getting my colors. So I have a blue fog and I have a warm light. Now, at the moment, I don't have my post-process on. And I don't light like this because I can't tell what it's going to look like. But you can see, that's what I mean. Like, it's not really a dark scene. It's not truly in shadow. There's a lot of information in my shadows, right? So here, where her form is going to be dark, we're still feeling light wrapping around the form. Once I turn that back on, you can see our colors are much more pronounced. And then I'll turn on, you know, probably the first thing I did was have my spheres placed, casting that shadow, and then adding some of these lights in. And that's how I get my shot. I think the hardest thing for me in terms of lighting in here, is it's just not very logical. I never have like a approach that I feel is like very rational, or that is that I don't have steps. So you know, I feel like if you know something well enough, you have a process. I have some kind of weird process, but it's not consistent. You know, maybe as I continue lighting more and more, I'll find some consistency in approach and some logic. But right now, it's just purely, really random and very artistic. I just know that I need to have it be brighter so that my shadows are not crushed. And I need the HDRI that I really kind of hate. So just to show you what that means. So some of the things, like, let's take a look at this shot here. So this is another shot. You can see she slips and she's sliding, and she's got the tears textures in her eyes, right? And you know, this doesn't have any of the grain or any like additional color correction or anything like that. What happens when the lighting breaks is the scene changes colors and it gets darker. So here, if you look at between here and here, you can see that the colors are changing. And you can't see that the lighting broke until you render it. So it will look correct like this. You can see it's less green, right? And it's more filled in. Here, again, it won't show up until you actually render it. So I'll put things to render overnight, wake up, look at it, and go, oh, the lighting broke, right? And it may not look that different, you know, through the stream, but to me, this looks much worse. Like the shadows are a lot darker, and I do want the shadows to be more filled in. I think it looks nicer, and I don't really want this green color. It's too green. I need it to feel more blue. As far as how I fix it, there's all kinds of random approaches. There is not a logical way to fix any of this stuff. Basically, I just kind of am very frustrated until I randomly fix it. So how do I do it? I restart Unreal, restart my computer. Like, it's one of those things, and it happens all the time. So that really does absolutely adds to the stress. Yeah, V-Ray behaves realistically. You can't approach it lighting in Unreal this way. You also have to light a lot brighter, and the post process is your best friend. Everyone says you need to post process. if I try to light without a post process, you can see without it, it looks really, really bright. Your shadows will be crunched black, and you'll kind of have like this that gross kind of look. You know, here we are. Here's that gross look. See that dark crunchiness right here, right? So you need the post process for that. I'll go over what's in my post process again. But anyway, so this is some of the stuff I'm doing with, and then other things that make what I'm doing with very difficult lately. It's just the cloth sim is more interactive, so you can see like she's sliding on here. So it takes many, 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 many tries. For example, I'll show you one thing. So in this shot here, I'll just show actually. I have to make sure Premiere and Unreal not on the same time because my computer will crash. But here's a shot here where she's like being rolled down. Koa's cloth sim is easy because she doesn't have a lot of contact.
Koa's the living room.
Yeah, Koa's the one pushing her. Hers are easy. And then the dead girl ones is not because she's having a lot of interaction with the ground. And she's spinning around and all over the place. So first I have to go through the usual shot correction. As far as how shot correction works for me, I'll give you an example. The stuff I deal with that makes me want to cry and why I'm so tired. So for example here, I'll get something like this. And part of it is because our rig is not very good. And then so we're getting all kinds of weird pops. And it's causing a lot of trouble for everyone, for mocap, for animators, for me, right? So I'll get something like this, and then I have to clean that up. So, you know, this character here, the one rolling around, went through that. She had all kinds of weird stuff. The arms were cutting into the body like this. That will never cloth sim, right? That will just explode. So I did that correction. Then I went through and, you know, had to check the contact points. Contact points aren't huge. But the problem I had here were her arms. So when it was cloth simming, you can see she doesn't have fingers. The cloth would get caught up in the hand, and then it would tear the clothes off. So by the time she got to the bottom of the hill, she was like naked, because it would just be, it just wouldn't make it through. So I had to chop off her arms. Once I chopped off her arms, let me just play it. Once I chopped off her arms, the sim finally went through, right? For it to make it here, I'm pretty happy. Usually once it got to this point, like the clothes got caught in the fingers and it just balled up into like a thing, right? Now, finally, once I actually got it through, well, there's a couple other things. I also didn't want her clothes falling off, so they had to be pinned in place. So her top would just roll onto her head, which is not the look that we're going for. But anyway, once I finally got it, and I have the fingers back in, the fingers would crash into the cloth. So that is actually shot corrected. So I had to sculpt the cloth based on animation, not to penetrate with the fingers. So anyway, you're seeing what I'm doing. This is not really abnormal in production anyway. This happens all the time. So anyone, if you're watching and you've worked a long time in the industry, then you'll say, yeah, I've done that, because that's pretty normal situation. But that is the tedious stuff that I'm dealing with. Other things that I'll show you here, you know, I lit this shot. This is a shot Miguel framed, and we thought it was cool. But once we see in the edit, it didn't really feel that good. Also, the lighting is broken. The temperature is shifted. It's not the same blue temperature.
Yeah, we wanted a shot that showed how scary the hole itself was, but yeah,
but
it
it
just wasn't.
doesn't really hold up. It starts.
It almost looks like she's in a I don't know, like an abandoned construction site. We just didn't like it.
Yeah, like the things don't always hold up, and that's the other tricky thing.
It's also like it's not like we couldn't have gotten this to work. It's just we have to balance it. Like, what are the pros and cons? Like we could go in there and put in a bunch of time to make it work, but is it worth it? We might as well just
Yeah, but
reframe it.
this type of framing, like if I get a shot like this, I know I'm gonna have a hard time.
Yeah,
So what?
we've noticed that Unreal shots, wide shots like this, always tend to look more gamey than shots where you could push the shallow depth of field.
Yeah, it's also kind of flat, right? Like you do have some foreground, but it's kind of everything is kind of middle. You don't have a lot of background because you just have this wall, so that there's not a lot of depth going on. That also makes it less cinematic and it makes it harder. Uh, and I feel like some of the lighting, the textures here, they look really plasticky, not very good. So could try to fix that, but it's not going to be that much better. So what we'll do then instead, we'll look at it and talk about it and go, yeah, that's ugly. Pretty much that's what discussion that looks terrible. And then Miguel will reframe the shot. So Miguel frames all the shots, and then I'll come in and light it and adjust it. You can see here. I think this is interesting. So I have a plane that colors the sky. If you look in the back, that's actually the real sky of the HDRI.
You should show that from inside of Unreal because that's very interesting. You're basically creating a backdrop.
Yes. So let me open that up. I'm also very under the weather. I'm super tired as far as what my schedule is like. I don't know. Well, earlier this week when I got a lot of stuff done, I was waking up at 1 p.m. but going to sleep at 6. So, right, and then I feel kind of sick, but I'm not really sick because I didn't catch anything from anybody since I've been trapped in the house. But yeah, so here's a shot here. You can see when it's in the brackets, it looks totally fine. Now, all this is a plane. So let me get out of the shot. I mean,
Like
right.
literally just like a Hollywood backdrop.
Yes. So the reason why I'm using it is that's the sky there. It doesn't feel right. So the fog in here, I do have fog. Let's turn it off. Right. So that's what that looks like without it. It's actually the values of the fog are pretty high. So they're actually exceeding it. But my scattering distribution, let's just show you what that does. My scatter distribution is really, really high. So when it's really high, the fog will tend to concentrate around more light sources. When it's lower, it will spread out more even. I don't really like how that looks. It feels fake, right? So when I lower the light, the fog scattering distribution, you can see it's more spread out, but it doesn't feel like realistic or natural. It's lifting, it's giving me fog where I wouldn't really see it, right? So it feels like a Z depth that's being overlaid into my scene. If I was rendering this in V-Ray and it was really dark here, I wouldn't see the fog acting like that. It wouldn't illuminate surfaces. So the fog is not really behaving realistically, right? So
because the way fog would really work from a compositing point of view, if you were to break it down as a compositing thing, first it's subtracting light, and then it becomes an additive process. The The wrong way of doing fog is to, if you were to just comp like a Z depth on top, then it just becomes additive. You're just adding brightness to the areas without subtracting the light first. So the correct way would be to use the Z depth. Not that you should do it this way, because you should always try to use physical fog, but you would use the Z depth as a mask to first darken the image according to the areas that have more fog, and then you would layer the fog on top as an additive process. So this seems like it's just putting it on top and adding it,
Yeah.
which is not physically accurate.
Yeah, physically accurate. Like if you are in V-Ray and you're lighting, as soon as you turn on fog, it's going to kill the intensity of your lights.
Yeah.
If the fog is really, really dense, your whole scene turns black. Because in reality, fog eats up light. That's what happens in real life, right? On a clear day, you would have more lighting. In a very foggy day, you just have less. The unreal fog is not real. So that's what also makes it very an artistic process when I'm lighting it. It does not respond realistically to what you would see in real life. So a lot of times if I see this kind of look, I look at stuff all the time, right? I spend my time studying stuff. Like what that means is if I see, someone making a piece that looks really beautiful and unreal, I'm looking at it, I go, why does that look so good? I see something that's not quite successful. Why doesn't that work? Usually this gives it away that this is unreal. Because if you're using any normal ray tracer, you won't have this lifted look. Now, that's why my scattering distribution is really high. If I hide this plane here, like this, because my scatter distribution is really high, it's not really spreading out evenly, right? It's going to focus more on just like lights. It's not covering my sky. So I'm getting this funny cloud. If I have my scatter distribution lower, you can see, the fog does eat up some of the sky. But yeah, not even completely. But in reality, I feel if it's a foggy scene, artistically, I shouldn't see clouds in the sky. I don't remember, on a more foggy day seeing like really sunny clouds or anything like that. So that's why I have the plane. So the plane is just faking it. It also gives me more control of the color. Let's see, is a question. Unreal has dynamic clouds and lots of other real-time effects. How is it possible to edit footages later if every time you get a different picture? It's just super artistic. It's not consistent.
What do you mean? How is it possible to edit footage later if every time you get a different picture? What is that? I don't.
Well, that probably, I'm assuming that means like
that every angle is different.
Yeah, like how do you have consistent lighting? Like how do you cut from shot to shot and have it feel?
Well,
like
I mean, live action, the lighting is changing from shot to shot.
Yeah.
Like if you watch a movie, every single shot, they're moving the lighting around, and there's no such thing as real consistency. You just have to light it like live action.
Yeah, there's no real consistency. The only, for me, how do I do this? I basically start lighting, maybe a shot like this, where it's a little bit wider. And I've determined a couple of things from this shot.
You started with the super wide, the hero shot. So you always start with the wides.
Yeah, I always start with the wider. But this is one of the wider ones. If I could show you a little bit later. So I've decided the art direction for this is this side here is going to be in light and she's going to be in shadow, right? So half of this pit is going to be in shadow. And then once I've set that in stone, I've just stuck with that consistency. So if I cut to the shot here, this is the reverse, this side's light and the other side's dark. That's the only thing that I've kept consistent, right? And then when we cut to this shot here, she's still in shadow. There's supposed to be light up here. I cheated a little bit. And if we cut to this shot here, They're technically in shadow, but you notice that in shadow, it's not really in shadow. It's still quite bright, and you can see quite a bit. As I load some of these sequences, it's just holding on. My computer is running out of memory. Yeah, there's no proper consistency to anything. It's such an artistic process, and very, very random.
And that's not just Unreal. Like we were saying, that's live action. If you look at Avatar, no matter what direction Jake is running in, the sun is almost always behind him.
Yeah.
That's just the way it usually is.
Yeah, this lighting looked like it broke.
You have to make it feel consistent, but it's never really consistent because that wouldn't look good.
Actually, I think I broke the lighting on that because I turned things on and off. Let's see. Let me load this up here.
For example, you're about to combine different takes. Easy.
Just reading that question, but the sky shading light, you have to mask out one shot, apply to every. There's no logical way. It's just completely going, this is the color, and it's super intuitive. That's how I work. I tried to be more logical in the beginning. But
you really do have to just do it shot by shot.
Yeah, it's all shot by shot. I will,
That doesn't mean that she or I are starting from zero with every frame, with every shot. Like,
Yeah,
you are
so-
using like the general
So like,
lighting.
for example, here, this is a map that I would usually start with, something like this, right? It's kind of even, and that works for me. And I don't really have the harsh black crap that I talk about that looks gross. So I'll start with something like that. And this is like the base for all my shots. It's not extreme. It doesn't have high contrast. It's a little bit less desaturated, and the lighting is softer. That's how my base is. So when I start a map up or a level, this is the lighting I'm going for, more even, less dramatic, something that looks fine.
What Tetsuo says is totally correct. It's like live action. There's a lot of scenes that are shot across multiple days. The lighting is different. The scene they start filming in the daytime, and then they're doing the last shots by the end of the day. 6 hours later, and you just have to kind of make it look like it all is happening at the same time.
Yeah. In real life, it's all
Yeah.
a bunch of cheats. Trying to load this up here.
That's a good example.
It's taking a second. Sorry, everyone. There we are. So here, I just loaded a sequence. Let's pop into the camera. Once I set up a shot, I then will make it more dramatic. So all my maps are kind of even lighting slightly and less dramatic. And then when I set up a sequence for a shot, I will have my post-process and basically everything in here. So I think I'm about to crash. I have my direction of light, and exponential fog. Yeah, it took a crap.
Well, while you do that, I could just show like that sequence.
Yeah.
Just to show how.
I just have too many things open. Well, you can start up. Let me just wrap up because I can't.
Oh, so you do want to keep showing something?
Well, there's a couple other things.
Okay.
So basically, I start with like even lighting. When I go in the sequence, I'll have my post process and everything in. my post process will usually punch up the things, right? So I usually increase my saturation, contrast, and all that, and all the dramatic stuff takes place within that shot. But my base map is always more average, normal looking. And it has worked best for me. If I start with something really dramatic, it's only going to work at one angle. And then if I use that in my sequence, it won't help me as much. So I tend to go for more average shots. The other thing I wanted to show as far as what I'm doing, or the type of work I'm doing. So I'm also at the stage where we're relighting things, right? So this shot was redone. And this shot has all kinds of weird
This has been one of our toughest shots.
or weird
funny.
problems.
Yeah.
One, she's performance-wise in terms of animation is also really tricky. So she's got a lot of expressions going on, and she's also talking. And some of the lip sync really falls apart. Her, in terms of looks, her colors are really weird. Seems like her skin tone is off. And she doesn't really quite look like the same character. Her teeth are really white.
Well, let's explain why she doesn't look the same. So the majority of the faces are done with facial motion capture, right? And I do all the facial motion capture stuff. So the voices are all actresses in Kenya or Tanzania, but then they obviously don't have a mocap rig over there that is accessible. So I have to memorize the lines in Swahili and then try to do the performance as these characters. If anything needs to be cleaned up, and a lot of times it does, like the lip sync is not perfect because again, I don't speak Swahili and I'm trying to memorize this,
And there's
or
also
the eye lines are wrong or whatever. They just need to be cleaned up somehow.
Yeah.
When the animators go in and reanimate it, since the majority of the shots have been done with the facial mocap, they all tend to look similar. But when someone hand animates them, they're opening the eyes a little bit more than we normally do. They're changing the mouth a little bit more differently than the way we've always done it. So they start to look like different characters. If all of a sudden you open your eyes just a little bit more than you normally do, your best friend would be like, "Hey, what the hell is wrong with you?" Right? They would immediately know that something is weird.
Well, you don't look like you.
You don't look like.
So, and then to be fair, they don't really have like a great facial rig that they can.
They
work
have
with.
a great blend shape library, but our what the thing is, since our pipeline was done to use mocap X for all the face stuff, we didn't create a face rig to do hand animation. So they're just doing this all with sliders, which sucks. But the blend shapes are awesome, but just there is no face rig for hand. Our rigs were definitely where we suffered the most on this project.
Yeah, we were crippled by it.
Yeah.
So animators are great. So they're not doing anything wrong or anything that if we had like a proper facial rig, it wouldn't be shifting around. So
and again, I can't emphasize enough, like the blend shapes, the shapes that were made for the face are top notch. It's not that, it's the
person making it is like the best, one of the best artists you can get.
It's the controls to animate them.
Yes. So the control would kind of box them in so that they don't change the face, right? Like, for example, like what Miguel is saying, I will open my eyes a certain way, I will smile a certain way. If all of a sudden the shape of my smile changes, I'm a different person. So what's happening in when they're doing some of this stuff, they're changing the proportions. So her eyes are up higher on her face. They should actually be lower. So proportionally, like there's more space here and it doesn't feel like the same person. So like, yeah. So what I have to do is, here's the corrected shot. You can see her eyes are lower here. And again, if you come up here on some of these frames, her eyes are higher proportionally on her face. So she becomes a different character. So this was relit and I took it to shot modeling, and I sculpted on the face over the animation to push the eyes back down.
You know, a lot of it has to do with, since I'm doing the facial mocap on a lot of these characters, my eyes always look half closed because I always look like I'm stoned, and I'm not. But as soon as the eyes are open too much, it doesn't look like them anymore because I've been the one doing the facial stuff.
Yeah, there's that,
So-
but it's also the proportion of the face change.
Yeah.
So
So someone is saying that you could search for native speakers on YouTube. Again, the problem was not we have the actors. The actors are native speakers. That's not the issue. The issue is no one that speaks Swahili that we know happens to have a facial motion capture system at home and knows how to clean up motion capture. That's just it's too much of a stretch. So it's not the Swahili. Our actors are awesome. It's
Yeah.
just they're in Africa and we're here and our motion capture system is here. So it's
but
not
still,
about that.
even then, you know, you have to do multiple takes.
Yeah.
And it's just easier if you're doing it because you're gonna do exactly what you need.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'll let you.
That definitely looks much better.
It does,
Whatever you
but you
did.
can see. Well, that's what I'm saying here is this. Let me just draw this out. 'Cause I don't think that's coming across. So proportionally, like her eyes are like halfway her head, right? But you can see like they're much lower, and she has a bigger forehead. And then what's happening in our shots are getting hand animated. Is you can see it here in this frame. Her eyes are really high, and her forehead is shrinking. So her eyes are in the wrong place. They need to be down here. Right? And everything needs to come down. That's why she doesn't look like the same person. So her eyes need to be like here.
So Tran is literally going in with Mush 3D and
Resculpting it.
basically resculpting it frame by frame.
Yes. So I have to bring that down. But anyway, you guys can see the stuff I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
It's not anyone's. There's no fault in any of this. It's just how it is.
It's under resources.
Yeah, that's how indie projects work.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You're never gonna have anything perfect because you don't have the resources.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to take over?
Well, yeah. I mean, I could show a few things that we're doing. So I'll play this part that Tran was showing with. Hold on. So there's a comment here. It's amazing to be able to create this. Yeah, I mean that's kick ass. I think it's super cool. I'm super proud of the fact that we cast this project entirely in like proper Africa, and all the actors are from Kenya or Tanzania. Like I'm super happy that we did that. There was a moment of panic when we couldn't find anyone in LA that I mean, I'm sure there is, because Swahili is there's millions of people that speak Swahili. But in LA,
For us on our budget,
when we put the casting call out, we got nobody. And the thought of doing this in English was heartbreaking to me. So anyway, so let me play this sequence. You'll notice one scene is clearly not finished, and you could usually tell because they're naked. Oh, hold on. I have a bunch of the clips muted. Sorry. Let me play that one more time.
it's also streaming low pixelated.
Kitu gani hiki?
Yeah, so that's it coming together. So you can see like this is like the one shot that is not done from this part, and you can just see it just so freaking ugly.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know what happened there, but the rest of it is pretty consistent. Like when you look at this, you don't think that the lighting is changing from shot to shot. It all feels like it's from the same. This one, of course, does because it's not finished. But you know, you cut to this. This is a different part of the set.
Is the music really loud? Everyone's commenting my ears.
Really?
Yeah. It doesn't seem loud to us.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think what it is. Let me balance this.
Oh, there was a buzzing. Sorry. You guys should watch this when it's out so it's not pixelated. Because that bothers me. They say it seems okay now.
Okay. Like now I can't even hear it on my end. So, okay. So let me see. Okay. So, but anyway, that's what we've been working on. So what we have to do now is I'm just going in and adding some starting to organize this whole thing. So when I'm working on this stuff, I'm in terms of the sound, I'm trying to layer this as much as possible, but I'm super sloppy when I'm working initially. I just want to throw stuff, just make the edit work. I don't want to be organized because I don't know if I'm going to actually keep what I put in there or not. But at the point that we're in right now, I need to start organizing everything. So you can see I'm starting to go into Premiere and organizing this based on what is what. So at the bottom here, we have all our atmospheric sounds. So if I were to just isolate this here, you could see it's just, can you guys hear that okay?
I mean, I can hear it. I assume they can hear it.
So yeah, so you could see it's just sounds at this point of like atmosphere. The birds, the wind is coming up here.
And they say it sounds good. But it's subtle. It does add a lot, though, huh?
It does, yeah. Okay, so we have that. Next up is all the music. So if we isolate this here, so you can see I'm labeling these guys with it's called mango color. The color that it gives you, it's kind of weird, but so these guys are just one of the things that we did on this project that is different from the other projects we've done is we tend to use music much less on this one, and not because it wasn't a conscious decision. We just started letting silence play a bigger role, or just like simple drum beats or a simple cymbal hit rather than like an actual score. And I think it works because of the primitive nature of the world we're building, right? It's like a tribe. They wouldn't have a symphony, so that sort of stuff doesn't work as well. But you can see here, We have our Foley, like our environmental sound, but then we have music kicking in. So the music is, there's a lot of just drum beat sounds like this. This is not part of the original score like this here. And those are everywhere. So you can see another one over here. So that's not part of the what the composer did. That's just me going in there and being like, I need to emphasize this right here. So as we cut this and we see the big tree for the first time, we have the drums kicking in to let people know, like, okay, we're in trouble, right? This
like
is
there's
not
some
good.
kind of doom.
Yeah. And then there's, let's look at the sounds here. You can see there's no dialogue on these tracks. So this over here, we actually did the Foley for this a few weeks back live on this, which was like the vines moving. It's just a lot of little sounds. Like, what is this here? So you can see this, it's called like risers, right? It almost feels symphonic, but it's not. It's just like a sound of tension building up and just layering that in there in a way that it almost feels like it's part of the score, but it's not.
It does feel like it's part of the score.
Right, but you're building this moment up, like this thing is revealing this mask and this hole and basically telling her to come get it. Right? So you can see that has nothing, but there will be a bunch of sounds there. So another thing that we did this week was basically giving the voice, the hollow of voice, right? So we didn't have any sort of voice here. So you can see when she goes, I know what I want now. So you can see now it says it's yours, right? And we have this like demonic voice. You can see it over here as well. If we come over to this here, when she first encounters this hole, this. Give it a second. Okay, so you can see that's playing terribly. It's really choppy. But let's just take a look at those sounds for those voices. So what I ended up doing on these is just recording myself. So, and blending it in with wind. So this is saying it's yours. Let's look at like the master one, because I think this one's going to sound cooler. Okay, so let's go over here and let's take a look at that sound. So right there. Okay. So it sounds evil as hell. So let's break down these layers and take a look at what we have here. So I'll just solo this and you can see we have wind. Right? And then we go over to the next layer. Right? And what all this is you can see if I double click on this, you'll see the raw recording here. Let's open up this other one here above it. It's all, I think, part of the same. And what it is just going in there. Let me make a copy of it and paste it over here. Grabbing that voice. So let's remove all the filters. Let's set the speed back to what it originally was. So here it is. Let me put the volume up. So I realized that if I grab my microphone and I cup it and I speak into it, it was naturally giving this kind of echo vibe. But I didn't want it to sound like me at all. Like I actually hated the idea that I just wanted to do it for some sort of temp sound. So I just grabbed that and I slowed it down 20% slower. And when I did that, it immediately shifts the pitch because it's stretching it out. So now it sounds a little bit deeper. Okay, that's cool. And then I could go into Premiere and go to Essential Sound, and I'll go into a dialogue, and I could set this to, like, for example, a large room. Set this as a male boost. And then under reverb, which is basically echo, I could come over here and set this to like church. And let's just see what this gives us. Right? So now we have that. Okay, cool. And now we have that. Let's put the wind next to it, or at the same time, rather. Bring that down. Volume. All right. So now we just have to basically repeat this. So I said the same sentence like 5 or 6 different times. And then you just start layering it together and you end up getting that demonic voice. So now we have this here. Okay. The other thing that I did is I went in on some of these, and some of them are set to 70% speed. Some of them are set to 80% speed. And I wasn't trying to make sure that they sounded exactly the same. I wanted some of them to be slower, some of them to be faster, offset the timing of it. So you could see, if you look at the waveforms here, they don't perfectly match. Like this one over here is really slow. Like let's hear this one alone. And I think this one I set the speed to 50%. So you can see it just sounds like some weird rumble. Okay, again, lower the volume on that. So these horizontal bars here represent the volume, and I could just bring it up or down, or I could put points on there by holding down Control, so I could control when the volume goes up or down. But I just kind of did it as a whole. And then we have this. So my original idea was just to do like a temp sound, temp voice, and then again hire an actor to come in and make it better. And we did that. So this is an actor, Albert from Kenya. Let me bring the volume up. The problem, it's not a problem, but I guess it is a problem for us, is that as amazing as his voice sounds evil as shit. It just sounds a little too evil. So we almost just kept my voice and just left his in very subtle, so it sounds like there's multiple voices in there.
Yeah, we like it. It sounds amazing. But story-wise, like
It was too evil and too deep, and we felt like if we heard that, we would just run. Not that the other sounds so happy and not scary,
so
but
bad, but one is heavier handed.
yeah, one I like the idea that the other one almost sounds like a whisper rather than Darth Vader. So we have them, and again we did the same thing, recorded it multiple multiple times, layer it. So let's put all the voices together. We ended, again, we did not use all of these, but we just hear it. Okay, but it's extremely cool, this essential sound stuff. So pretty easy to use. It does all the stuff for you, and you just basically use a lot of these presets here. You could increase the amount of reverb here, the type of room that it would be in, and then it's automatically creating all the actual filters that are not so easy to understand, you know, like dynamic processing, graphic equalizer, vocal enhancer, studio reverb, hard limiter, all these things that may be a little overwhelming, but if it's just broken down like this, make distant, give it a vocal presence, and make it look like it's in an auditorium, cool. And then it's just adjusting all the settings for you. So if you want to keep it as simple as possible, that's yeah, you get a lot of Amityville versus Exorcist. Yeah, you get a lot of bang with very simple settings. So highly recommend it. I really love this essential sound. And then you could take it as far as you want. So let's go back to this here. And let's see what else we have here. So all the sound is broken down per actor. So the first layer, if we just hear the first one, it's just our main girl. The layer under that becomes our second girl.
Lazima twende sasa hivi. Sasa hivi. Ningetaka kukuchoma, ningekuchoma. Lazima twende.
Because she doesn't sound like she's talking.
Karibu.
But the minute we enable both of them,
Lazima twende. Ngoja tuone kama utapenda. Jaribu.
they're now all there. And the third is tertiary characters. So the father, the demonic voice. So you can see once the father comes in, he's never around talking when the demonic voice is talking. So it would rather keep it all on one layer. So you can hear the father in the background. Okay, so that's going to make it much easier to do the final mix, because you'll know audio channel 1 is all Koa, then Ala, then tertiary characters. And then everything after that is broken down. You know, it's basically all the green stuff is just Foley sound effects. So stuff like, so the spear spinning in the air. Again, like this part here, it seems like there's a score there, but this is not a score. This is just a bunch of random sounds added together to make it sound almost symphonic. So you have this, right? Again, that's like our atmosphere, wind. Let's see what we have here. Our drum beats, right? That mixed with this heartbeat. Right, and now we have these secondary drums. We have horns over here. So there's no score, but when you hear them all together, you know, it sounds like it's some sort of a song going on. Like even that's our risers. Where is that? That's over here. No, that's not it. Where is it? Oh, right here. I can already tell by the waveform. So just build that up, and then because something bad is about to happen, and then boom, that's when you hear the father calling them for the first time. So you're like, oh my God, our dad is about to arrive and I just murdered my sister, right? so you have that building up, but it feels like a cohesive thing, and it's just made out of all these random sounds.
The color in that shot looks weird.
And which one?
The next one. Keep going. That one.
Does?
Yeah, sky. It's the blue is very weird.
So you can see here we start having the sound. So we have a heartbeat here. And then as she's suffocating her, I want to be able to show, okay, she's dying, obviously, but how do we emphasize that in the sound as well? So it started breaking the beat. What I first did is I tried to use the timing to make sure that it landed on the correct beat every time. And then I realized that it felt too mechanical. So I started offsetting them. So it felt like the heart was misfiring. It wasn't hitting the correct beat. And that kind of made it feel more natural. But initially I was really going in and I'm like, okay, let's hit it on every four, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3,
So the
4,
rhythm is like
and
off.
landing it. Yeah. And I didn't like it. So I purposely went in and broke that. So right there, you could see it naturally feels like, wait a minute, that doesn't land right. So it's like, doo-doo-doom, doo-doo-doom, doo-doo-doom. It didn't hit, and now it's hitting there. So it's taking you off. And then, again, something I use all the time is just going into our speed duration, grab that same beat, slow it down by 50, and it just is, it's the last beat before she dies. So right, I can maybe bring the volume up a little bit because as I stretch it, it kind of it changes, not kind of, it does change the pitch, making it deeper. Right, and maybe I could even shift that in a tiny bit. This shot is not final.
No.
But yeah. So what do we have here? We have the horn kicking in again. So, all right, so let's look at this and let's see what we could do here. So this is a wide shot, so there's not a ton of sound that I would put there, but let's see what we have. So I'm going to pull up my media browser, and I have a fairly small library of sounds, but I have some sounds. So I'm just going to go in and start to look for stuff to put in there. So I do want to buy like a really nice sound library eventually, but not right now. So, all right, so let's go. So I have this organized fairly well. So you can see animal sounds, build up sweep sounds. So let me just show you like what that means. So sweep sounds or build up or sounds like this. And a lot of times you don't have to use the whole sound. Like this is a great sound, for example, to build the tension. Come up to that point right there. Like, let me show you like how I could build this. You can, not that I want to use this like this, but I'll just show you. So here it's like, oh shit, the body fucking stopped. It didn't go all the way into the hole, right? So I could grab that sound and be like, okay, that's a cool sound. Let's bring it into one of the layers. So I'll look at the waveform all the time and I'll be like, okay, it's building up here. And right there, I'll just cut it. And I'll just basically find the spot where the body stops rolling right there. Right? And now I could just go in and be like, okay, so let's find
You have a question. Where do you find these audio clips?
so there's a few different places. Let me show you. So the one that I use for these so far have all been motion array, but I was looking at, some people were talking about this site that apparently is very good as well, which is Epidemic Sound. I don't use this one, but I'm definitely checking them out because this is more sound and the price seems to be better than motion array, because I think motion array gives you like stock footage for film and all kinds of stuff that I don't really need. This is only sound libraries. So this one seems pretty good. Epidemic Sound, sorry. And then motion array is another one. That's the one that I got these sounds from. And you can see, you could just start browsing. Let me pull something up here real quick. Like, let me go to drum. Okay. So you could see it's broken down into categories. And again, I don't need photos, I don't need videos, but they have audio. So you go to audio, and then you could see percussive drum hits.
Preview. Preview.
You have a
Preview.
bunch of different stuff. They're dark transitions and usually percussive.
Preview.
Okay, so you can see it sounds pretty cool. So here I could just come over there, go to instruments. This is not my library because you could keep these forever. Go to bass drum, and then let's see what we have here. So that feels like you're going to war. I like this one. I did use this one a few times.
Yeah, that one's nice.
It's not so over the top. So you can see I could grab that sound and now connect it to that riser that I had. I'm going to isolate this layer here. And kind of find, so just butt them up against each other, and I'm just going to zoom in. And I'll probably clip out the beginning. Let's just see what that sounds like. Now, another thing is when you look at the waveform, you could kind of get an idea of whether they could work together, because you want it to build up and then kind of be at the same volume level. So this seems like it's going to work. So it doesn't have the impact that I want. So let's just go in there and find another one. So this one is the old reliable. So just put that in there. I'll bring this up a little bit volume wise. And it feels like it's off a beat. It feels like it really should stop right. That impact should be there. So let me just shift that over. Right? And if it's too hard, I could come over here to speed duration, set the speed to like 60%, right? So let's try that. Stretch this out. Okay, that's everything. Okay, and again, I could go into Essential Sound, go to Special Effects, go to Heavy Reverb, bring up the amount, bring the volume up a little bit. So it's adding that kind of effect in there. So you can see really cool. So what I want to do here is start.
I have a question. You do all sound design in Premiere for this project?
So far, yeah, but I'm definitely. This is a conversation that Tran and I have been having. Like, I think I want to do. We usually hire a sound designer, but I think on this project I want to do all the sound design, and then just use a mixer to mix it for me. And I think I want to transition over to Pro Tools for that. So I think it's going to eventually be Pro Tools. Currently, it is all done in Premiere, but it'll probably become Pro Tools. So, okay. So let's go in here. So these shots here in particular, like close-up shots of the feet. So let's go into my footsteps folder, and you can see I have a bunch of different ones. Footstep on gravel. These are one shots. Okay. So let's try to go in here and start putting these in and seeing how they sound. Trying to get the contact right there. Zoom in a little bit. You can see there's a secondary shuffle right there. So we'd have to get another one. Place it right underneath. And let's ignore this one. So we'll mute it. And now we're looking at this foot here. And it lands right there. So we look at the peak in the audio. And we figure that's the point where the foot would make the strongest contact. So we just shift that over. Up. Sometimes it's a little finicky, so that seems fine. This guy could probably be shifted over a tiny bit. Let's take a look. I'll probably lower this one a little bit since it's further back. So this is our volume here. Oh, that's cool. I'm glad that's helping out. So let's take a look. So we have another footstep there. There's a tool. There's a company called, oh my God, what are they called? I'll tell you right now. Protos Audio, that does some incredible tools where you could connect these sounds to a MIDI controller, which is like a $100 keyboard. It's like the small ones. So where that becomes extremely powerful is you could load up all of these footsteps into this program, and then I could just watch this video and just press the keys with my finger, and depending on what key you hit, it's a little bit higher pitched, a little bit lower pitched. It shifts the pitch accordingly. So now you could just kind of time it with your foot instead of going in here and just fine tuning everything. You're just basically like, click, 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 just trying to match it. So I definitely want to get that for this kind of stuff, because footsteps, putting in the footsteps is the freaking worst. So you can see right there, contact. So again, look at your peak, put it in position. Doesn't have to be exact because it is gravel, but that. So we have another shuffle there. Let's grab another one. Let's solo this. So you have mute and solo. Solo just means that that's the only one you're going to hear. So I just want to make sure that this is the only thing I'm listening to when I place that foot. Now lower it a little bit. Okay, so let's hear these two together. So I'll press solo and solo. The good thing is you could have more than one solo. And then we have the slip here. So let's take a look at some of these sounds. So we have so this almost feels like a drag, which I kind of like here. I'm going to grab that. I'm going to select the in point and the out point here. And now I'm just going to drag that in there. So it's only using that portion of it. and that'll be for the slip. So I'll do that, and I'm just going to go to speed, and I'll set the speed to 200%. Let's just hear what that sounds like. I bring the volume up. You can see it's like a slip. I sped it up. Let's put that right there. Okay, cool. Let's get some gravel, little rocks falling and stuff like that. So let's go to our ground. Just give me a second. So temp sound.
Here's a comment. Awesome Foley sounds seem so hard for a novice to get clear. Like you need a mic and a bunch of celery and super. That's actually kind of true, though.
Yeah, I mean the good thing is you don't have to. What I think you were the one that was saying this. Like we live in a great time where you have access to these libraries now that you don't have to be there cracking celery. That's like reminds me of like one of the most famous voiceover artists is Mel Blanc, the guy that did all the Looney Tune characters, and apparently he would throw up if he ate a carrot. Like he despised carrots.
Bugs Bunny.
Bugs Bunny.
Yeah.
And they had to record all the carrot chomping later because he could never chomp on it and say something because he would throw up. So I think they might have used celery for some of it just so that he wouldn't puke. Just reminded me of that. Okay, so let's look at grounds. So I have a rock section. So moving small stones, rock debris sound. So let's just hear what I have here. So too big. That's kind of good. But I'm not seeing enough rocks like moving around, so I don't want that. Let's see what else we have. I like these, especially that right there. So again, I'll select the in point right here and the out point. And then when I drag it with audio only, I'll place this above. So this will just kind of fill all of them together. It's almost like the hi-hat. It's just like filler little sound. So you can see if we just listen to that. Okay, and I could probably just grab that and use it again here. And since there's that one particular spike in the wave, that's probably an identifiable one. So I'll just cut that out and shift it over. And then I'll just right click and then go to apply default transition so that they blend into each other. Okay, and that'll probably be good. So let's solo these three and hear what they sound like. Okay, so there she falls. So let's go to, I have a folder called Impacts. In there, I have a subfolder called Fall. So you can kind of see the folder structure. So impact, fall, and in there we have like body falling. So for art, you have to throw yourself down the stairs and record it. Okay, so let's grab that and let's throw it in here. So she hits right there. So let's just time this. Right there. It doesn't have enough thump. So let's see if we have, that one sounds pretty good. So let's just layer this. I'll shift this over like that. So I could come over here to this guy and I could go to effects over here, and I'm just going to go to pitch shift, and I'll just throw that out there. Go to edit. And I'm going to bring down the semitones, which are like the broader sounds, and the sensor, like the lower, like the higher, the more detailed. Bring that down some more. It starts sounding a little bit deeper. Okay, so that's pretty good. So let's just make sure. Okay, cool. So let's get some little rocks, or the sound of like little rocks falling. So let's go back to my rock folder. I have rock debris sounds. So let's just hear these. That one might work now that it's an actual fall. This one sounds pretty good. So let's grab that guy. We'll place him down below here. Got to be careful because it might be too long and I'm too zoomed in. So you got to be careful that you don't drag it and overwrite something else that's maybe off the screen right here. So I do want to make sure that the peak is in the area where we have our impact, or at least closer to it. Okay, let's right click on this, apply default transition. Actually, let's not this. And let's get some of the little rocks falling over here. So let's just double click that. I'll probably cut it here. I don't want that first sound, and let's just drag it in there. Let's make sure I didn't overwrite anything and there was nothing there. And I probably need to put this on another layer, kind of time this correctly. So let's solo this guy too. Okay, and now we could hear it all together. That sounds pretty good.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
The Wilhelm scream. Yeah, that would be that would be funny. So the Wilhelm scream, for those that don't know, it's an old sound. I forget what where the original sound came from. I know yeah, it's from the minute. Oh no, it's from the movie Distant Drums. And it's this scream here. It's one of the most used screams in history, right? And every movie that had a guy falling had that scream. Even Star Wars has it.
Really?
When the stormtroopers are falling, that is the sound.
It's everyone uses that scream.
Yeah, and it got to a point where I don't know who did it first, but I know that it got to a point where people started putting it in just as like an homage to it, because it just became so funny. The last time I saw it was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, when what's his name, when Brad Pitt falls from the building, they put that sound. So yeah, I don't know if it would work for her, but
That would be really weird.
so we do want to put some rocks falling here. So I think it's fine to have the little sounds there, because yeah, there are some there. They're very hard to see, but they are definitely there.
They're just flying too fast at the screen.
But here we need some that look like they're falling down. So okay, so what I'm going to do now, so these are all great. So let's just right click on this and go to let's go to our footsteps here. we'll go to our one-shot folder. So I love these because it's just individual footsteps, so you can really get it exactly where you want. So I don't just want the footsteps to be here. This was an important part because it's a close-up of the footsteps, but you kind of want them here also. So probably grab some of these guys. I'll lower the volume here and try to find the spot. So right there where her body shifts, place that there. And let's solo these layers only. She's doing a slow walk, so it's not going to be so bad. Let's place another one here. That looks like a big one, so let's avoid it. That seems better. And let's just find where the next footstep would be. So there's a shuffle there. So we could definitely place it around there. That's where the body drops. Boom. So let's grab that, place it there. Lower the volume on it since it's not a close-up shot. Pretty good. See if there's one missing here. Feels like there should be some sort of shuffling here. So maybe what I'll do is, let me just take a look at this. So not that one. This here. This kind of shuffling sound. I like that one, so let's just grab that. Add it over here as well. Okay. Cool. I could maybe add one other footstep here, so let's just find one.
Here's a question. Do you think Unreal Engine will replace the pipeline in the whole industry in the future?
I don't know. I mean, it's already done a lot. I think there's just going to be two different camps. There's going to be the guys that are. There's always going to be something that can't be done real time. Always, right?
Yeah. Well, I think I mean, we haven't explored Path Tracer, but I feel like materials don't look as good, right? So we're not using Path Tracer, but you can't do glass without it. And
yeah, it's a lie to say that Unreal looks as good as V-Ray. You know, it just does not.
No, you can get it to look good, but
it to look good, but
and maybe I feel like, oh, I can get this shot to look good, but then can I consistently get all my shots to be just as good?
Yeah.
I think that's really tricky to do. The consistency in lighting is actually hard. So
yeah, and that's not a diss on V-Ray. I mean, sorry, on Unreal. Like Unreal
is amazing.
Renders 30 frames a second or more.
Yeah,
right.
It's
V-Ray takes 30 hours a frame if you push it far enough, right? So
yeah.
You know, it's amazing, but I think they're both going to have their place.
Yeah, I do say I don't think the materials look as nice. So like the shading on objects and just, you know, the subsurface scattering is not as nice. The refractions are not the same, and I think those are, you know, make a big difference in your final product. That stuff seems like it's getting better. So
yeah. This, you know what the thing is, Tetsuo? So this is something that Tran and I have talked about a lot. I don't think that they can compete, and I'll tell you why. I mean, I could never say never, but I think part of what makes part of what makes Unreal so genius is the fact that it's not just a renderer, right? It's doing the nanite stuff. It's doing so much more stuff than just rendering. That everything it does is optimizing the geometry. It's more than just the minute you press render. I think the problem that stuff like Arnold has or V-Ray has is that it has to work with anything. It has to work with 3D Studio Max, with Maya, with Houdini, with this, with that. It has to be able to kind of accept anything. Whereas everything in Unreal has to be optimized first in order to fit into this workflow. And I think
Yeah, you
for
have
something like that, it would have to be a change from like Maya down or Maya up, whatever. It has to be more than just a rendering.
yeah, you're kind of trapped in Maya. And you know,
Yeah.
like try laying out this scene in Maya. You can't, like you have to do a bunch of proxies. And you'll just be looking at like wireframe bounding boxes, and it's so slow. I think that if we had to do this in traditional Maya pipeline, we would not be this far along. I think we'd be so far behind right now if we were doing that. The speed in which you can work is really amazing. I think that our shots would look better. I think some shots I feel like, okay, I don't think that this would look better in V-Ray, for example. But there are shots I look at and I'm like, oh, if I was doing that in mine, that would look better.
The other thing, so I was talking to this producer this week, and he wanted to see how he could transition a company from V-Ray to Unreal, but none of their artists work in Unreal. And I think one of the things that's tough is if you grab anybody that doesn't know that much about V-Ray or Arnold or whatever, and you just show him the basics and they just put a light and press render, it's gonna look pretty good. But when you're doing stuff in Unreal, you kind of have to know what you want, things that you get for free in V-Ray, like certain bounce lights, stuff that Tran was talking about earlier, that you have to know, like, oh, I need this to look like V-Ray, and the only way I can get that is by putting a fake spotlight in the back there and making that look like it's all naturally happening. If you don't know that you need that, your image is just not going to look as good. And I think that a lot of times you don't even think about that stuff in V-Ray because you're getting so much things for free.
Yeah, it does all that work for you. A lot of the struggle with lighting was like, was literally art directing. You go, I want shadow here. I don't want that here. I need the light here. And like the amount of lights I use in V-Ray, I usually use like 2 lights. So I don't need complex lighting. And then the number of lights that I use in Unreal is like a lot more because everything is being faked.
Yeah.
This comment made me laugh. Yeah, you need to render big forests from above trees start disappear at some point because Unreal. So
Yeah.
yeah, I totally know. You know, one that I can get over, and I looked it up, was that lights disappear too, right? So it's not just like the tree disappears. You can deal with that with LEDs, but with lights, we're far enough that just like go away, so and they don't do anything anymore.
Yeah.
What is your recommendation for beginners to start Unreal Engine or study traditional pipeline?
I would start with traditional pipeline.
Yeah, it depends what you want to do. Like if you're trying to make a game, then or game environment, then of course you just use Unreal. But if you're trying to tell a story and do something more cinematic, then I just think understanding traditional pipeline will work.
The thing is, you need to understand a traditional pipeline anyway in order to get anything into Unreal.
Yeah, you're just reshaping the pipeline a little bit.
Yeah.
But our principles are the same. Sounds like you need a strong prior foundation to draw from. Very helpful having experience to get Unreal to hit beautiful levels. Yeah, I think so. I mean, Miguel and I have been doing stuff like this for a very long time. And it's just Unreal is new to us, but we've been making short films and lighting and doing stuff prior to that.
I mean, the good thing is you could kind of go back and watch all these videos and literally see the evolution of not just the project, but us learning the tools. Because if you look at the first kind of
Let me see if
videos,
I can dig up
some of the
those.
stuff is really hideous.
Oh, it's so ugly.
And that was the whole point of this project, though, is to show the reality of doing this from start to finish. You know, down to boring stuff like this. Like we're freaking putting footstep sounds. Like, come on, it's super boring. I know that, but this is part of the whole process. So here you can see I'm just picking different sections of the clips to just put in there and trying to time it. So here where she pushes herself up, maybe she would push some rocks down. And it's too high pitched, so I'll just probably slow it down, and that'll change the pitch and make it stretch a little bit better. And I'll just lower the volume. I tend to use that a lot. Slow it down even more. At a certain point, if you slow it down too much, it does start feeling mechanical, but like that starts feeling like a tin can, so that's too much. I just lower the volume even more. Now, I feel like I could have her breathe there also. I just want to make sure, do I have the breathing there? So let's like isolate her layer here. I believe I did put a breathing sound there. Yeah, it's yeah, so that's good. All right, so let's hear that all together. So we'll unsolo everything. Let's look at this part here. So it works pretty well. You know, little things that I'd like to do is this pulling of this vine here. Let's see what we have, because we could do one more thing there and then we'll wrap it up. So I know that I have a lot of vine sounds over here, so let's just see what we used here. I think these were like branches cracking, so let's see. So let's just grab that sound and bring it over here. She pulls that down. Let's kind of time it. Bring it up here. Let's so it's kind of peaking right there, so I'm going to offset the timing there. Let's grab that sound again. I'll slow it down here, so I'll just do pitch duration. Let's set it to 80. Just lower the intensity of it big time, the volume. Let's slow it down even more, so let's go to 70%. Probably pull this back a little bit. See, that works pretty well. So let's hear that again. Oh, I have no idea what a senior Unreal artist makes. We just work on our own films, so we don't know. But you probably get paid a lot of money. We've been offered a lot of money to go work for other people, but we don't want to work for anybody. Like, I would say, like, to not give such a vague answer, like maybe what, like a senior artist, like you're making 100,000 and more.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I pulled up some of our first renders. Should I show?
Yeah. So let me just show this one last time, and let's just take a look here. Right. So yeah, you want to show that?
Okay.
Yeah, but that's sound, and that's a lot of what's left. So
just
yeah.
just to show you where we started. So like these are some of our first shots, and they're really terrible.
Now, to be clear, we knew they sucked, right? It's not like we were like, "Yay, this is awesome!" Like we knew this sucked, but this is like what some of the shots look like.
Oh yeah, and I think I was having a heart attack. Like, oh my god, this looks so bad. So this is some of our first stuff. We have like black artifacts everywhere. It's really crunchy. That's what I'm always talking about. Like the shadows look bad.
And this is like in the beginning of this project. This is not like 2 years ago or anything like that.
No, this is the beginning of this project.
This is
yeah,
us
and we
going like, oh my god, this is gonna look terrible.
and we knew it looked bad, right? And you can see what I mean. I kept talking about my shadows. My shadows look bad. It's just black, and it looks like a game. And this shot here, you've seen it. You've seen this shot in a trailer, but this was our first, kind of one of our first looks at it. Just looks really, really flat. The lighting is flat, so you can't even tell the scale. And then we did have fog, and the fog was very tricky to dial because, you see the lifting effect, and you're like, okay, there's fog, but it doesn't really look like fog. What is it doing? It just looks so bad. You want to show what that shot, the final shot, looks like?
Well, I'll show one of the tree shots, but like,
Or you can pull the screen.
it's night and day. It just looks so much prettier now.
Yeah, it was very very hard to learn how to deal with the fog because it doesn't do that by default. It will look like whatever I showed you, which is just like some weird crap,
Yeah.
like a weird lifting effect.
Yeah. But all right, well, that's it for this week, guys. So we're getting to the end. I know we're going to have an event at Gnomon in person to show the final reveal of the film, which will be great. Yeah, we'll let you know, but we're going to be done in November for sure. So we have a month left, and then we'll be done. So does anybody have any questions before we go? Nope.
Nope.
All right.
We will
So-
be here next week.
Yeah, if you want to follow us on Instagram, this is where we're posting some of our stuff. Oh, I could show one thing that is silly, but I'm super happy about it. So this is our official logo for our company. So it's a pilgrim burning a bunch of kids on the stake. this is from the first film we ever did, and we just wanted to go back to it. And that's the first couple of notes from the first short.
Oops.
So,
Sorry,
what was it?
I took the screen by accident.
Yeah. Nice. But
Thank you for tuning in. We're happy to have the people that we have tuned in.
yeah, thanks everybody, and wish these poor kids well because they're getting cooked alive. What half stands for? What does half stand for? It's half Miguel, half Tran, and we're pessimistic bastards, so we're half empty because the glass is always half empty.
Yeah.
So that's it.
We'll get rest. Thank you, Tetsu. We'll get rest once we're done.
Yeah.
So
All right, guys. Later.
bye.
Bye bye. Oh, let me press this thing.